Welcome to the Private Equity Experience Podcast, your backstage pass to the strategies, stories, and secrets that drive value in the PE universe. No filters, no fluff, just straight talk and expert insights to help you navigate the private equity world with confidence. And now your hosts, Ed Barton, Rory Liebhardt, and Emily Sander.
All right, here we go. Lightning round.
Oh my.
What sports team collapse stands out as the most epic fail in history?
Pretty much every year of the Mariners, but this one after the All-Star break.
So I will go all the way back to, I believe it was what's called 1992, when the Houston Oilers and the run and shoot offense powered by Warren Moon lost to Frank Reich and the Buffalo Bills in a 42-point comeback in the playoffs to put the Bills in the Super Bowl for the third or fourth time, and they lost them. So
they lost all of them.
Yeah, but that was one where growing up in upstate New York, I was a Bills fan, and I just remember like this game is over, and Frank Reich, who also had one of the largest comebacks in NCAA college football history, was the quarterback for the Maryland Terrapins when they
you dubbed upon it this
similar.
Weekend.
Yep.
I love how you know this.
That is
but
pretty insightful, man.
I am the Cliff Clavin of worthless knowledge.
I don't know who Cliff is, but he sounds great, and I know that
different generation.
That's how you can tell.
I don't consider that useless information. I think that's awesome and highly valued information.
But I know that the current holder of that record is Kirk Cousins, because I love Kirk Cousins, and he has the biggest comeback. He took that from Frank Reich, and Frank Reich called him to say, like, now you carry this mantle, you use this for good in stories and encouraging people and things like that.
That's
so
impressive.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, next question. What's the worst investment or purchase you've ever made, big or small?
Say that one again, because there's just so many choices. I just want to make sure I understand.
What's the worst investment or purchase you've ever made, big or small?
Worst investment. I have a hard time picking that one. I mean, I haven't had any crazy bad ones, but it still doesn't.
Ed is pinching the bridge of his nose.
The worst. But maybe it just doesn't mean I've taken enough risk in my life, Rick.
Yeah, I've got so many choices. It's so difficult to choose. I could go.
You are not risk adverse, Ed Barton.
I could go like, well, it was when I bought the glass and glazing contractor, and I didn't know anything about glass and glazing. That was an interesting choice.
I believe your reason for that you gave to me was like, I wanted to like break shit up. Like I wanted to break glass.
Yeah, well, and the other part was I wanted to get out of like sitting behind a computer and stuff like that. And I had done construction work in the Army, so I was like, oh, this will translate. Didn't. Blue collar employees are not soldiers, in case you had any curiosity about that. So I'd probably put that one at number one. I've had a couple real estate investments that were not good ones much earlier in my career. So in my 20s. 5-unit apartment complex that really was not a good decision. And what I was hoping was an emerging, but was actually a declining area of Syracuse, New York. So I've got plenty.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I've probably made some dumb decisions on like not investing in things like, so giving up on great returns because maybe I played a little too safe in my personal life, That's more, I think, my issue. Yeah.
Yeah. The approaches and temperament came out clearly in those answers. Last one here, and then we'll roll. What's the funniest fail you've ever seen in a pitch or presentation? So you were receiving the presentation. What's the funniest fail? Like, oh, wow.
I mean, people that fail to describe what they're pitching adequately and come across idiotic, I guess. And I've seen countless instances,
I actually can't name any. I mean, I'm struggling, and I think I have subconsciously just flushed every memory of those out. I mean, I'm trying to think in like business, and there's just nothing coming to mind where I was like, this is just a dumpster fire and a half.
I will give one example of a pitch I was part of where somebody I was with that happened to be like an independent advisor. So like a broker that will put you in front of investors. We were in New York City, and this was for a bankruptcy business that Ed and I worked for. And we were pitching on basically a, private sidecar investment fund to go buy a bunch of bankruptcies. Anyway, this independent advisor, who shall not be named, older gentleman, certainly very advanced in age. We were in Manhattan, probably, I don't know, whatever, 60 plus floors up. And we were in this office of that. You could tell there were, they had a lot of LPs, big office, very high end. Anyway, a lot of glass. So we were invited to join the potential investors for our pitch. This poor gentleman walks through basically a glass wall, or walks into a glass wall.
Oh, no.
Oh my God.
Smashes his freaking head on the glass, and it leaves like how like if you get a window ding like on your windshield, like it kind of spiders out, like that happened in this office in Manhattan.
No.
The glass must have been an inch freaking thick. And this guy's head smashed it. And I don't know how he stood on his feet, and I'm not sure he did so well after that, but it was pretty damn funny, because if that's not a failure out the gate, generally, I don't know what is, but needless to say, we did not get investment from this group. And this guy.
And one man walked out concussed.
Yeah, he might have had a cracked cranium, but that was crazy though. Man, insane.
All right, here we go. The top 5 things founders need to know about how to not. The top 5 things founders need to know and how to not make mistakes in partnering with PE.
Boy,
what are the fails to avoid?
Only 5.
If you are partnering with PE. Only 5.
Well, I'll start. As a founder, not knowing what you're getting into with a certain type of deal structure, or I should say, someone should know completely what kind of deal they're getting into, and what does that mean for them? What does it mean for the company?
So, as a founder, you should know the freaking deal structure. That seems basic. Yeah. Are people not doing this?
But it's not. There's many, many stories of folks selling their company to, whether it's private equity or another party, and thinking that they're smarter than the other side, so to speak, and that maybe they don't need advisement from all manner of professionals like lawyers, accountants, others, and they just move ahead with the deal. And the next thing they know, whatever compensation that was coming their way on the business could have been structured in a way where they don't see a dime up front, and or they see cash up front, but they don't have what's kind of called rollover equity, or getting a second bite of the apple down the road, which is where most people probably make more of their money, is if you sell your business, you stay part of it, you help it grow, you have a big incentive to do that. But basically what I'm saying is, without knowing what the structure is, what does it truly mean for you and your family? What does it mean to your employees? What does it mean for the business? Like, you could get screwed. You might think you're getting a good deal, but you could get screwed,
So people get all excited because they have a deal. They have a deal with PE. Yeah. They picked me. I'm going to make a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
And they don't look at the details and don't think about the ramifications. And they're like, oh,
yeah,
F.
Yeah.
Now I'm in it.
And I mean, I'd say,
and not only are they in it, but the structure is such that they're in it behind a preferred return and an accruing preferred dividend. And, so they're in it. They've rolled money over, like Rory said, the deal structure is critical. And folks go into it going, well, I cashed out for $30 million, and you probably could have cashed out a lot more. And or your rollover, which they've convinced you to put a bunch of that 30 million back in,
right,
is now like
maybe
trapped
it's at risk,
behind a bunch of stuff that you don't control.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is fail number 1, having
the big one,
left money on the table,
yeah,
and having your money trapped. That sounds horrible. Okay, what is
number 2? Number 2 is not knowing that you're about to be an employee working for someone else.
Yeah, no matter what type of sweet talking you heard over the closing dinner or even before that in the process, that can be a rude awakening.
Yeah, that's where I've seen. I mean, I have built a career on cleaning up after private equity, after founders have sold to private equity and they've been exited.
Yeah.
Or in some cases now re-entered. But that's exactly that fail is the one that where the first one that we talked about is largely economic.
Yes.
And there's you could, that's going to hurt the pocketbook. The second one hurts the ego because you've built this business, it's your baby, you've held on to it, all that good stuff. And then boom, you're now working for some dude that's like half your age that is running your business with a spreadsheet and is telling you exactly what you need to do and what your reporting needs to be and when you need to call them and that blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of founders just, that ain't their DNA.
They fold, man. They're used to being the king of the castle.
Yep.
They're used to calling the shots. When I walk in a room, everyone perks up,
Mm-hmm.
and then they get thrown these $12 words by a dude behind a computer, and I've seen them fold, man.
Yeah.
Like they just get kicked in the nads.
Yeah, and then it just turns acrimonious. I mean, then it has the potential of getting very toxic in an environment. And, the employees are not immune from seeing all that and feeling all that. It's that's where you can get a failure to launch on a deal, from both sides, like the buyer, let's say PE in this case, they think they have a collaborator on their hand potentially, and maybe that's not the case. That then just becomes a distraction from moving forward on what the overall purpose of the partnership was,
So fail number 2 is not understanding that you are not the captain anymore. As soon as you sign that agreement, you are working for someone else.
Or maybe you understand it, but you have denial about what is the case. You think again, you believe that these guys don't know jack. I will figure this out. The employees support me, all this stuff. Like you're telling yourself these stories. And, I'm not saying it's never been pulled off before, but I've personally been party to more deals where it has not than I have, way more than I have. And so, like that's more of an issue of like being real with yourself in a way, and also being very candid before the deal is even close to being done with how is this going to work, with the private equity or the buyer is.
Yeah. And this might lead us into, this might be a number 3 here. We've talked about this before, but they can't run the business without me.
Oh,
well, my,
yeah,
that's hubris.
I was about to say that. I don't know if that's as much. Yeah, that's a fail. That's like a fail between the ears.
True.
Because
they can't get rid of me.
They wouldn't have bought the business if they thought they couldn't have
you
run
think
it
these people aren't
you.
doing diligence and don't have contingency plans ABC. We talk about it in our book. And by the way, our audiobook's out. It came out this week. A little plug there, but anyway, ding, ding, ding. But yeah.
If you want to hear these voices on an audiobook, then check it out in the show notes below.
Probably want to hear Ed's the most,
tones.
But yeah.
Yeah, the dulcet tones.
But yeah, I think it's really, you can't avoid those conflicts in a lot of cases. You just can't.
No, and it ties into a little bit about what you were saying, Emily, where when you were the founder, you were used to having like everybody bow down and kind of you are the center of attention. And the challenge that some founders run into is their team still treats them that way.
Yeah.
And they're being pushed down as the employee from the sponsor.
Yeah.
And they really just don't know how to handle that. I mean, it's and they don't want to show to their team they're not in charge. And it's tough to go, well, I can't do it because the private equity guy says I can't.
Okay. I think we've all seen this. The PE guys play nice as long as they can because they don't want trouble. If they can have a CEO or founder stay in there and be fine, that's great. Some founders make the transition. They get on board, but there comes a point in a meeting where the rubber meets the road and it's basically like you're not in charge or that's not your call, and it just dawns on the founder where it's like,
that's not your call. Yeah, that's not your call. I've been in those board meetings.
So have I. And it's like
we've been in them together.
Just cuddle.
We've all three been in the same meeting.
In the same meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Grown men turn to puddles. Yes.
At the end of the day, if you may have once owned the entire pie, but you now own a minority share, and it might be a small minority share. So just by nature, you can't call the shots, unless you have some sort of some provisions we've talked about again, but like preserving your voting rights and things like that. You are a lesser player from the ownership standpoint. That's where the money's
not a
at.
lesser person, just a lesser player.
No. Sometimes a lesser person, but
well, sometimes a lesser person.
Yeah.
But I think to avoid that fail, so the fail is not fully knowing, recognizing, internalizing like
that piece. I think mostly
happen.
Just being realistic, and
okay, that's fail number 3.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I think it kind of comes hand in hand. Ed talked about it. Is like, it's going to be a different kind of company when you're owned by a bigger company or a professional investment company, PE. You're going to have things that you might not be used to doing, reporting, certain levels of budgeting, KPI tracking, you name it, professionalizing your firm. So you may have gotten your firm through just your brilliance and charisma to a certain point, but you could only take it so far. Obviously, otherwise you wouldn't have needed to take on additional capital. You would just bootstrapped in and still run on business that you had up until that point. But things are no longer fun, probably, for a founder in a lot of cases. And I'm only saying that, I'm not sort of like making light of it, but it's true. Like, the organizational structure of PE-backed company is very different than a founder-run. I call the shots. We do what I want to do with product, customers, pricing, all that stuff. Now, all of a sudden, you now have people who've got material investment. You have, the deviation to your financial performance could be very problematic because you likely take on a bunch more debt that you have to service. So, you have to maintain managing the business to the numbers, KPIs, again, data.
Well, I think, Rory, in all of what you're saying is like, you have to answer for your decisions, and the answer can't be because I wanted to.
That's a very good way to put it. Precisely.
And you could get away with that before. That was a perfectly valid answer because I said so. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I mean, I'll say it in truth. I think maybe some of that still plays. Like, you can get away with a lot until you don't start hitting the numbers that you put in front of in your strategic plan.
That was my number. That was my number.
I'll let you take it then.
Yeah. Number 4 is you put out a forecast that you can't hit.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
And, we as chief executives have a tendency to want to set, especially with our sales teams, optimistic, aggressive stretch goals. And we're used to putting those in place. We're used to driving toward, how can we drive faster, harder. And you put that in front of the private equity guys, and aren't collaborative around, here's my assumptions. Here's a base case. Here's a stretch case. And here's a worst case, and kind of do your scenario analysis and show the inputs. And I've seen enough private equity guy or founders going into private equity transactions. They close a transaction. That transaction's closed on their projections going into the transaction, which were probably rosy and aggressive.
Yeah.
And then they don't have an honest discussion with the private equity sponsor during diligence or post-diligence around the rosy and aggressive.
Yeah.
They start to miss, and then they don't have the conversation because they just hope it'll disappear and go away.
For sure.
And that's the thing. They somehow, I've seen this, they somehow think the PE guys will forget the numbers you told them.
PE guys don't forget numbers.
They do not.
It's like, what? No, they're gonna like. No, I can talk them off. I can talk them off, Emily. No, you can't. You don't think they're gonna be like, on March 30th of this year, you said da 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 da.
I know one PE guy who, every number you said went in Evernote.
Yeah.
And then it would be searched, and it would come out, and they would reference that to you.
Yeah.
Every time. They'll forget their mom's birthday before they forget a number you told them on a projection.
Yeah.
And that ain't no lie. That's reality.
True. And I mean, I can honestly say with a straight face, I've never comprised BS, in a pro forma that we put out there for suitors to. But
I like how you just said comprised BS. This is like, these are Roryisms that are now occurring.
Yeah. So, but What I will say is this: you put out a forecast. Let's be honest here. The other side has a different forecast on their side. They've got basically a compression forecast, which is to say, based on key drivers of this business, if stuff goes haywire, here's what it looks like. They wouldn't buy the business if they didn't look at all those things. So, but to what Ed said and what you said also, Emily, I have had conversations 2 years after a sale, not just with PE, but also strategic buyers, where they point to something that, I had modeled out, and they said, this is what you said this was going to do. And it may be 3 years since I put that together. I'm like, true. But a lot has changed. And so, anyway, point being is, you think these things might just be like glazed over and just like not paid attention to, or, given a cursory review, but no, that's not the case at all. They're very thoroughly reviewed, scenario analyzed to the, nth degree, but they're always going to come back and kind of hold you to what you committed to, whether or not they actually believe it's achievable or not. And it's just how it goes. And so don't take our point here is don't take anything lightly. I mean, be very serious about what you're presenting as far as the view on your business, and defensible. Rosy is good in some cases if you think there's a high probability of it being met. Sandbagging is by necessity pretty dumb, because then they will basically point to that and give you evaluation based on what you're showing them. And you can't really say, no, well, I'd sandbag that. That's not, you should pay me more. They're going to be like, no, F you. Anyway, so you got to have that sort of Goldilocks. It can't be too bullshit. It can't be bullshit. It has to be credible, but you don't serve yourself well by sandbagging it artificially either. Just with all the information you have, put out the best view you have,
Yeah, and founders sometimes aren't used to that, because given what we just said, like, I call the shots, I make up the numbers. We don't even have a forecast. To you now need contingency A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And all of those need to be backed up by numbers and data and assumptions you can explain.
Yeah.
And then, as any salesperson knows, the first number you throw out there, you're anchoring them to that number.
That's why
and then you have to kind of do reverse psychology to them.
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe we can just touch a little bit on, there's kind of an art form of, here's what's realistic and reasonable, but we know we want to be aggressive, and we know aggressive and achievable you can do at the same time. So is that a judgment call? Is that the CFO?
That's the conversation. So that is where I will stress that, like, look, you have to truly feel like you're in partnership with your private equity sponsor, and you have to go, look, here's my scenarios. And this is largely the CFO. Kind of to your point, Emily, you normally, in a private equity investment, you normally have like these 3 levels of connection. You've got your managing director, senior person that's interacting with the chief executive. You generally will have a director, vice president, principal level that's interacting with your chief financial officer.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have some analysts interacting with analysts, essentially kind of doing a lot of the data work. At this level where the CFO is working, they should be any projections you're doing needs to be, one, communicated by the CFO up to the CEO, so the CEO doesn't get over his skis or her skis and
I've seen that happen.
Give numbers.
Yeah.
Yep, give numbers that aren't real. And then the second piece is this development of what the future is supposed to look like needs to be collaborative at that CFO to principal, CFO to vice president, CFO to director level, so that they're walking into the board meeting presenting a consensus forecast or a consensus plan that management has bought off on, and that the private equity guys have worked through. And a lot of that beating back and forth has happened in a collaborative way, in a trusting way at those lower levels, so that way when you get to the board meeting and you've got your senior person at the PE firm and your senior person at the company are discussing it for maybe the first time, the work has all been done. And if you surprise, it's when you surprise, that's where the problem occurs.
Is that a methodology or a principle type of thing? Like, for instance, you come to partnership with the PE group, like, we're going to forecast aggressively. Like, we're going to lean in really hard. and whatever you're going to see from us is going to be aggressive.
I don't know. I think the tried and true method of basically presenting things is you always have a base case, you always have a stress case, and you always have an upside case. You're anchoring around the base case, generally speaking, but you need to communicate, what the potential is both ways. And so I think that's the mechanical piece. I think what's really important that Ed alluded to, or just said explicitly, it was like, have the conversation in a genuine way, like collaborative, like you're sitting at the same table from the same direction, looking at it as if you're already partnering. Say, this is what we're going to do. These are the ways we can outperform this. It's going to require more capital. It's going to require infrastructure, whatever that might be, type of business. Or, like, here's the exposure we have. Maybe you're in a consumer lending business, and like the macroeconomic drivers based on, whatever elements of, household income and all those things, like unemployment, like here's what could go haywire, but we don't believe that's going to happen for these reasons. I mean, so you're not trying to sell against yourself, but sooner or later, they're going to form their own opinions. You'd rather have them form their own opinions based on reality. And really, in a lot of cases, the reality is what the executive team knows about the business. Maybe they don't know everything they should, so informed. Just the point is, you're not serving yourself in any way if you obfuscate information, or you make stuff up, or you justify things, because these are professionals and they've seen it all already. So,
and I'm also thinking, once you partner with P and you have the ongoing forecast exercises you do, is it kind of finding that mind meld where, like, okay, here's how we do forecasting, and that's simpatico with the PE group's mindset around doing forecasting. Like, I know, for instance, there's a
usually
decision.
It's kind of a one-way street on how that's dictated. I'll say that. It's like they have their way of looking at things, and you could form your process.
And you're going to have their way of looking at things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Rory, what is the compression piece you mentioned earlier?
Well, that's more of a stress case forecast.
Okay.
It's simply saying, hey, this is the downside potential based on these factors and these scenarios. You could do something really extreme, or you could just do something that says, seasonality in your earnings, or, maybe a negative dim view on the economy influences your business, depending on what it is. Maybe you've got like a manufacturing business. The possibility of tariffs going from like 20 to 100% is like real, like one of my former clients is in that exact space, manufacturing. Like, we have to project for the fact that tariffs are going to crush us. So those are real conversations.
All right. The fifth and final fail for a founder when they're partnering with private equity.
Well, I'll throw one out. I don't know if it's the fifth or the final, but it's like, it's one that I think a founder in particular, and, employees as well of a founder purchased company, like, what's the exit strategy here? Like, what's the end game here? Private equity does not mate for life. We know that. So what is the end game? You may not have specific timelines, but like, these are the types of discussions you have before you cut a deal. Like, it's like, we're looking at, how do we make 1 + 1 = 3 here? So what is the plan? And what are we going to be expected to execute as a management team? Or I should say, like, they're going to want to hear how you expect to make it go 1 + 1 = 3, and how they can maybe support that. But what is the exit strategy? Very simple.
So going in with the end in mind, understanding your risk premium.
That's what I'd want to do. Like, how am I going to get paid out again? Like, how am I going to, like, what's my next bite at the apple? If they, specifically what Ed's saying is, like, if you roll your equity, which means you're taking less up front, and that's maybe like a requirement, maybe not even negotiable, but like, okay, if I'm like deferring my compensation or my proceeds, like, am I going to be expected to not see liquidity for 10 years? Or are we talking like 2 or 3 years? Like, basic stuff like that's kind of important.
Yeah, I think the key is knowing you will transact.
Yeah.
And so the other side of it is, don't get too comfortable.
True.
And if you're performing well, you're going to transact faster, most likely. And so as a result, the better you do, the more likely it is you're going to be disrupted with okay, we're going to transact your business, and so therefore we're going to disrupt your apple cart.
Yeah.
And I think some CEOs, the CEOs who are most successful have kind of avoided 1 through 4.
Yeah,
and then they get
for sure.
5 and they go, but I've figured this out. And now you're telling me I'm getting sold to a strategic and I'm about to lose my job and my folks are going to get laid off. Not that that ever happened.
Yeah, never.
But yeah. So I'm going to get sold to strategic. I'm going to get my second bite of the apple and all that other good stuff. But I'm out of a job. My folks are getting laid off. Again, the baby I made. Now I figured out how to work with you guys, and this has gone well. Now it's going to be like, well, no, we're done. Thanks for playing. Time's up, and we're going to flip this business. And so recognizing that business will transact and maintaining a healthy emotional state with respect to the business, knowing that 1, it's not yours anymore, and 2, it will go away, and you and the business will get split normally after, again, going through another exercise of transaction that you went through the last time, is just something to keep in mind. And it's going to be disruptive, and you're going to be expected to actually, you may be asked to do window dressing going into it. So you may be asked to do some non-hires, preliminary layoffs, kind of do some stuff 6 months in advance. It's going to make it much harder for you to hit your numbers, and you'll be under more pressure to hit your numbers because they're trying to get it ready for sale. And so all that is just a long way of saying,
yeah,
you will transact. It will be disruptive, and you might have figured out 1 through 4 and avoided those 4, and you're still going to get whacked with number 5 because you're probably going to be comfortable at that point and feel like you got this thing mastered. And that's exactly when they're going to come in and go, okay, time to sell.
Right. Yeah. And actually adjacent to that, I'll lump it under this one, but it could actually have gone under a couple of the others, is like, what does doing this deal lock you up from doing? In other words,
opportunity cost.
Yeah. I mean, if you are brilliant in this space and you all of a sudden get 6 months into that deal, post all your things you signed, and you're like, I hate this, I'll just go freaking do this myself again. No, you might not.
Yeah.
You might be locking yourself out of that. And in exchange for the compensation you took on the deal. So, that's another element of to be, again, honest with yourself. I was like, is this possible? Are you possibly content where you're no longer going to be able to be an entrepreneur in this particular space within a reason, like 10 years or something? Who knows?
Well, there's like elements of like control and ego we've talked about, but it's also about like, what is important to you right now? Honestly, what is important to you right now? Yeah. By the way, the answer to that question changes as you go through life.
True.
What?
So check
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. But
yeah.
And what you think is important might not be what's actually important when you actually go through it. Yeah.
So and circumstances might inform that. You know what I mean?
We were all just talking about that before we jumped on air today. Like what's important, and that's changed or is changing for each one of us. Yeah. And it's life. It's life. But okay.
PE is
those were 5. Not the only 5. No. I shouldn't have said final 5, but we could do part 2.
We'll do 6 through 10 next down the road.
We can do mistakes that PE firms have made because they're not perfect either. So I mean, this is just tip of the iceberg, but just heading off like the major ones that people listening, like please avoid these if you can. Really think through them. Make sure you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, listeners, like, comment, subscribe, and if you have questions, hit us up. Absolutely. We love talking about this stuff, and there's only so much we can cover in 35, 40 minutes,
Yes. We've gotten some great comments and questions, clarifying questions in the comments. So drop them in the comments, and you can always reach out to us with our contact info in the show notes. But thanks, Ed. Thanks, Rory.
Thank you.
Thanks, Em.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.